All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are talking about a mental model that, frankly, separates the good strategists from the truly great ones. It's called second-order thinking, and it's all about moving beyond the obvious to build strategies that are genuinely resilient and can actually stand the test of time.
You know, a lot of leaders approach strategy like they're playing a game of checkers. You make a move, you expect a direct, one-to-one result. But here's the thing. The market is not that simple. Your strategy isn't checkers. It is absolutely chess. And that's a game that demands you see the entire board, you anticipate the reactions, and you think several moves ahead.
So, to really get why playing chess is so important, we first have to talk about the default setting for most organizations, and it's something we can call the first-order thinking trap.
So what is this trap exactly? Well, first-order thinking is simple, it's linear, and man, is it tempting. It's that knee-jerk reaction. There's a classic example you might have heard of, the cobra effect. A city offered a bounty for dead cobras to cut down the snake population. Makes sense, right? Well, the first-order effect was fewer snakes on the street, but people started breeding cobras to collect the bounty. The second-order effect, way more cobras than they started with. See, you're only focused on that first immediate result, but you're not playing the game in a vacuum.
And what happens when you think like that? You get those quick, satisfying wins. They look fantastic in the quarterly report. But because your moves are so predictable, your competitors can see them coming from a mile away, and they can counter them easily. Your initial advantage? It just evaporates. And you're left exposed, which creates this long-term vulnerability for your brand and for your whole business.
Fortunately, there is a much more powerful way to operate. To build a strategy that's actually durable, we need to adopt a superior mental model, and that's second-order thinking.
Okay, this is where the real strategic chess game begins. It's about moving past the simple question of, if we do X, what's going to happen, and asking a whole series of deeper questions like, okay, if we do X, how will our top competitor react? And then how will our customers perceive their reaction? And what are the third and fourth ripple effects on the entire market? You see, you're anticipating the whole chain reaction.
This table really maps out the mental shift perfectly. Your action focus moves from just your own immediate impact to anticipating the reactions of everybody else on the board. And maybe even more critically, your outcome horizon shifts from just chasing short-term gains to building long-term resilience. It's a complete, fundamental change in your strategic perspective.
So, this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually make it happen? This next part is a practical playbook for embedding second-order thinking right into your organization's DNA.
Okay, this playbook has 3 really concrete actions. First, scenario planning. Don't just plan for your ideal outcome. You've got to game out what happens if your main competitor slashes their price in response. What's your move then? Second, simulate market responses. You can use tools like wargaming to pressure test your strategy before it costs you real money. And third, monitor beyond direct competitors. Seriously, the biggest threat might not be who you think it is. Just think about how taxi companies were all watching other taxi companies and not an app on a phone.
Now, this kind of thinking has to be championed from the top. As a leader, it's on you to build this culture. That means cultivating a long-term perspective, rewarding your teams for thinking beyond just the next quarter. It means you have to encourage cross-functional dialogue so your product team actually understands the second-order sales implications, and maybe most importantly, you have to create a culture where people are rewarded, not punished, for challenging the core assumptions of your entire strategy.
Adopting this new mindset, well, it's a journey. And like any journey, there are some pretty common pitfalls to be aware of. Mastering this skill really means knowing what traps you need to avoid.
There are 3 major traps to look out for. First, overanalysis. Thinking 5 steps ahead is crucial, but trying to map out 50 moves, that's just a recipe for paralysis. Strategy requires action. Second is confirmation bias. This one is deadly. It's when you actively hunt for data that proves your plan is brilliant while you explain away all the data that shows its flaws. And third, ignoring weak signals. You have to remember that every massive disruption, from social media to AI, it all started as a small niche signal that most leaders just dismissed.
Okay, so we've covered the what, the why, and the how. Now, let's bring it all together with one final challenge for you to take back to your team. This quote really gets right to the heart of it. Any company can have a moment of success, but the real test is endurance. Second-order thinking, that's the engine of endurance. It's the continuous work of anticipating, adapting, and evolving just to maintain your position in the market.
And so we end with this one powerful question. This is the question to bring to your next strategy session. Don't just ask if your plan will work, ask, and then what? What are the ripple effects? What comes next? Because inside the answer to that question, that's where you'll find the key to building a strategy that doesn't just win today, but one that endures tomorrow.